Valve be like, do you like Left 4 Dead? Would you pay money for Left 4 Dead 3?
Shut up and take my money!
Well, go fuck yourself. What? Yeah, you heard us. Go fuck yourself. We don't want your money.
No, I don't understand. Why?
Fret not, my little gamer, cause Fat Shark is here to save the day. Not only will we make successor games to Left 4 Dead, but we will make them in one of the most badass IPs. Warhammer. Well, what about... No, don't worry about them. That shit sucked. Let me introduce you to Darktide. Hey y'all, it's Troy here, and let's talk about my latest gaming addiction, Warhammer 40K Darktide. If you're unfamiliar with Darktide, then I'm sure you are familiar with its biggest inspiration. I loved Left 4 Dead back in my day, and I think it's a fucking crime that Valve hasn't followed up on this potential cash cow. The formula is just so great. Let's take some real awesome first-person shooter gameplay where you just mow down tons of enemies. Added an AI director that ensures the player is always caught with their pants down and that their BPM is really high. And add in 4-player co-op so cooperation and survival become key strategies to success. It's just chef's kiss, so much fun. So since Valve is just doing whatever, cause you know, why do anything when you have a money printer in Steam, Fat Shark has come along to save the day. Starting off with Vermintide series, which I didn't play much of 1, but damn, I did love 2. And it's actually still relevant. They just dropped a new class, so don't be afraid to hop on. But their latest release in Warhammer 40K Darktide has been a bit rocky. Now, this won't be a straight up review because, well, the game came out a whole year ago. And yeah, honestly, when the game came out, it didn't suck, but it was kind of disappointing. And of course, I wish games would come out complete and good right off the shelf. But with higher development time and costs, that is becoming increasingly rare. And you know, I will always officially review games based upon their initial release, but it is worth mentioning when a developer puts the work in to make a game better over time, especially for free. And Fat Shark has made a lot of improvements. In honor of their work and Darktide's anniversary, let's take a look at what Fat Shark is cooking. Well, first off, the game is just beautiful to look at. The hub world in particular with ray tracing on is just so sweet. And it runs pretty well too. I will say the load times are long, but I'd rather take that over a buggy mess. Which the game was significantly more buggy when it first came out. I was playing on PC with my NVIDIA 3080 graphics card, and I was able to run it on Ultra with ray tracing on low and consistently hit 60 frames per second. But really, the meat and potatoes of Darktide is its moment-to-moment shooter gameplay and character leveling and progression. And badass Warhammer 40K setting. Which, when Darktide first came out, a lot of this was significantly lacking in content. Starting with the setting, which Fat Shark really nailed the vibes of Warhammer 40K right off the bat. But probably the game's biggest initial criticism on release was that there just wasn't enough of the setting. The hub worlds look badass, and so do the maps, but there are a lot of reused assets and it got stale very quickly. The level structure in Darktide is a bit unique in that there are zones with each one having about 3 to 4 playable maps on them. These zones are big areas, and each map has you start and end in a different location, each with a different objective throughout. Now this is both a boon and a curse, because while it is cool to traverse and see these zones in different ways, some of these maps can really blend together and seem very similar. When Darktide first released, some zones only had 1 to 2 maps, but I believe they've added like 2 or 3 and ensured that these ones stood out a bit. I can't really confirm this for sure, but it does seem like they've added some new assets or something to these zones to make them stand out from one another. I'm not sure, but the maps do feel better than they did on release. And there's also a whole new zone, the Carnival, that just dropped on the 14th. Ooh, sounds spicy. And what they've done here has helped keep things fresh. I'm happy that they are addressing these pain points, but there's still a little bit of a ways to go. But so what happens when you and 3 friends drop into these maps? Is the moment-to-moment gameplay fun? Well, I am happy to say that is Darktide's biggest strength, and always has been since launch. Especially on the higher difficulties, things can just get insanely chaotic and fun with swarms of enemies and specialists just piling on top of you. And if you're unfamiliar, a specialist is an enemy type that, well, has a special role or ability, such as the Poxhound, whose agility is unmatched as it pounces and pins down one of your teammates. And these specialists are extremely well designed and have great AI. They can really cause a lot of panic and chaos. But they never feel cheap because each one has a specific tell that a skilled player can quickly recognize. For example, the Bomber will lurk behind cover in the shadows, only popping out to throw a firebomb that can zone you and your team out of a certain area.
I have a health kit, guys. I'll use it at some point. We need it.
Yeah, probably kind of soonish.
Ooh, they're coming in hot.
I'm not even fucking worried about it, bro.
They're extremely, extremely annoying. But if you listen closely, you can always hear the sound of a grenade pin being pulled and subsequent toss. Or there's the sniper, who are especially lethal and also extremely obnoxious. They will keep their distance and will seemingly one-shot you when you are preoccupied with mobs. But if you have a keen eye, their lasers are pretty easy to spot, and if you keep some lateral movement, you'll dodge their shots.
Oh.
Gotcha, bitch!
Another grenade, watch out.
I got the sniper. And I also have to mention, the objectives throughout the maps are usually much more than just defend this point. Some will require you to pull out a little device minigame to either fix a connection or conduct a search for an object. This forces you to play objective rather than just mindlessly kill. And the anxiety trying to complete these while hordes of enemies just breathe down your neck as you scream to your teammates to protect you is again just very well designed gameplay. And the guns themselves are very satisfying and shooting feels tight. There isn't the biggest variety here, but enough variety, especially between the 4 classes, to keep a new toy always in front of you. And the classes themselves, which are the Space Wizard Psyker, the Melee Fanatic Zealot, the Tank Ogryn, and the Sharpshooter Veteran. They all feel different with different powers and weapon exclusives, but they can be built out in different ways where you aren't pigeonholed into a too specific of a playstyle. For example, you can be more damage focused Ogryn. It's this great design here that gives the game a high skill ceiling even if there are some light RPG elements at work. But RPG elements, you say? Well, Troy, how is this progression and character development? Another sore spot on launch. But again, this has greatly improved. This was actually the focus of their most recent overhaul, scraping their previous system which had very limited build options. Now there's a whole skill tree that allows you to upgrade your class's default combat ability, blitz, and aura for either a more powerful version or 2 new versions of these powers. Again, another good example is the Ogryn, who can either toss a huge AoE grenade or can just toss a huge single target damage rock. This on top of all the new passive buffs and perks you can acquire here. It really does a tremendous job at opening up the build variety. Oh, and you can respec at any time for free. I just love it when games do this. This overhaul made character progression satisfying and exciting. Great work, Fat Shark. Now, I know it might sound like Fat Shark turned this game near perfect, but unfortunately that is not really the case. There are still a few key issues that I think need to be addressed. And just a reminder that this isn't because I hate Darktide or Fat Shark. On the contrary, I actually love this game and Fat Shark as a developer. And I want to see them thrive and do better. And I am a wannabe critic after all, so let's criticize. Now the cosmetics are kind of trash. I wish the guns in particular had some cool different looks to one another. They suffer from the same issue as the map aesthetic. They all look too similar. And maybe that's because they really want to keep that grim dark theme of Warhammer 40K going. But I don't know. I feel like they could have done something to spice this up a bit. Or maybe that's to try and scooch you over to the cosmetic shop to buy overpriced skins because those are actually cool cosmetics. And I'm fine with having payable cosmetics as long as there are some cosmetics of similar quality that you can unlock through normal means. But having only the cool shit locked away while the stuff we get is just blue versus red gun or robe is bad. Also, the story here. Actually, who the fuck cares about the story here? That's not really a negative. What they've done here is appropriate. Have a little something just to give some backstory and meaning. I will say though, what is the point of filling out all this backstory in the character creator when none of it comes back up again? I don't even know how to look back at this information. Is it possible? Does it do anything? If it is, let me know down in the comments because I can't find it anywhere. So why is it here? It would be cool if it does something, but right now it's just kind of a waste of time. Another gripe I have is there's no real end game. Once you hit level 30, that's it. And you just try to roll the best gear, then go for the harder difficulties. Not that a game like this really needs an end game. I think the challenge is okay, but it would be fun to have something to grind towards. Perhaps some really cool cosmetics. Some really cool cosmetics, as I mentioned earlier. Now, I believe the biggest issue that Darktide suffers from is not having individual player stats in the endgame screen. I cannot comprehend why Fat Shark decided to move away from this after Vermintide 2. Is there something that my pea-brain here is missing? And sure, maybe you can say to eliminate some sort of toxicity and encourage players to cooperate and not play selfishly, but that would imply that players were only looking at the amount of kills, which is just not true when you include other stats like damage tanked or heals. The amount of toxicity this eliminates is just negligible compared to what this screen really does, which is tell me how my build is performing, if it's performing correctly, what my role was within the group. And this is a very cooperative focused game, so this information is important. Without this, you can't really know for sure if you're doing things right or wrong. And damn, I guess call me toxic for wanting some healthy, fun competition. Maybe I want to talk a little bit shit to my friends and say, hey, pull your weight, bud. It's not that big of a deal. And at the end of the day, everyone understands that working together is how you succeed in Darktide. And people that don't and just go for kills are gonna suck. So this screen would show that. You know, I did a good amount of solo queuing while playing, and honestly, this community is great. Everyone was knowledgeable and worked together to get through missions, whether on their mic or not. I never once felt like people would act in a toxic way if given the chance. So please, Fat Shark, bring that screen back. It's important in order to add depth and meaning to this gameplay because it gives you feedback. But so, Warhammer 40K Darktide and Fat Shark have come a long way in 1 year. Now this isn't a review per se, but fuck it, I like assigning numbers to things. I guess that's why I started making reviews in the first place. So if I were to give a score to Darktide on release, I would probably give it about a 5.5 or 6. The core gameplay and vibe were great, but everything outside of that was severely lacking. Now a year later, I'd say Fat Shark has moved this needle to about an 8. It has addressed its key pain points, which were character progression and map variety. I still have map variety has a little bit of ways to go, but it's so much better than it was. Now the game is on Game Pass, so if it at all interests you, go ahead and check it out. If you like Warhammer or you like Left 4 Dead or even shooters for that matter, you'll probably be interested in this. Honestly, the moment-to-moment gameplay is some of the best in a co-op shooter I've ever seen. And now that the progression is good, I'd say it's well worth a full price tag as well. Now, especially if you got some buddies you can level and play it with, it's just... So thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Also check out some of my other game reviews. You know, they're pretty cool, I guess. Links will be down in the description. I hope you have a wonderful day and see you next time.